Back in April, I posted part 1 of my video series documenting the completion of my 2025 gaming backlog. It was one of my favorite videos I've made as it allowed me to present myself and create something tonally different from any of my content from before, where I could express my love for video games in a video essay. Due to the lovely success of that video as it cracked my top 10 most viewed videos ever, I immediately started work on part 2, which I knew wouldn't release for another 4 months. If you're new here, I recommend you watch part 1 of this series to see what I've already played and a deeper understanding of how I'm going about completing my backlog. But if you don't want to, hi, I'm Stertrix and I'm documenting my process as I attempt to complete my 2025 gaming backlog. I have a list of 36 games I need to complete this year on top of a possible additional 29 games that are optional or may take over my life, including games like Clair, Obscur, Expedition 33, or Metroid Prime 4 whenever that releases. I've created a spreadsheet of each game, platform, estimated length, if I completed it, how long it took me to beat, and if I gave up. The last option is definitely the most controversial, as this is a series where I need to be completing games, so why would I allow myself to give up? Did I give up isn't just a way out, but it's instead intentionally something that causes me to think. Like most people, I deal with anxiety, stress, burnout, and also, like other people, I want to finish what I start. This isn't some cop-out, but it's instead something I have to consider for a variety of reasons, whether it's just that I don't enjoy the game, or that I don't have time for the game of that length. There needs to be a reason to drop a game. With all that being said, it's time to continue the next 4 months of my journey of completing my 2025 gaming backlog. Devil May Cry is the first game I started following the end of part 1 of my gaming backlog. This was a series I had interest in playing for a while, and after getting all games for less than $30 on Steam, I decided it was time to play it, especially with the anime on the horizon that looks really cool. This is future Stertrix here. The inclusion of the anime did not age well. Devil May Cry interested me for a variety of reasons. The game's unique sense of comedy, along with how badass Dante is, the short runtime on top of the hack and slash gameplay all compelled me to try out what I would hoped to be a fun game. I decided to stream the game over on my Twitch where viewers plus my friend Jet explained the making of the game on top of the insane lore. This was a surprisingly enjoyable experience, learning about how Devil May Cry was originally Resident Evil 4 before becoming its own thing with its horror elements and location feeling very Resident Evil, albeit now you play as the son of Sparta with a badass sword and gun, instead of the ability to dropkick grandmas like in Resident Evil 4. Beyond the cool history of the game, I really enjoyed the gameplay and its fun hack and slash combat. Later boss fights were definitely complicated enough to feel rewarding, but I think the true boss of the game was the fixed camera angles. I usually don't struggle with fixed camera angles outside of when the camera changes when I enter a new area and I accidentally turn around, but this game was definitely the most difficult to navigate. Low camera angles make platforming difficult on top of when a camera is fixed behind either a pillar or a large boss that I can't see Dante. But I enjoyed the game for what it is. It's a fun hack and slash with a simple yet enjoyable story. I look forward to continuing the series. Devil May Cry 2 is fine, but I think I like the first one better. As I was writing this, I was actively forgetting the plot, and I think it just didn't stick with me. From what I had read online, this was not originally a sequel to Devil May Cry, but was changed during production, which explained why there's mostly a new cast and Dante behaves differently. The game felt rushed, and while I had fun with the gameplay, there was a decent amount of stuff I struggled with. Like the previous, the fixed camera angle was the true boss of the game, along with level design that doesn't entirely guide the player on where to go. The worst of all was the map. The map is a PNG of the outline of the roads on the map. There's no indicator where the player is or where to go. I could spend an hour complaining about the map, but I won't. I really don't have much to say about this game, other than I enjoyed its gameplay. Devil May Cry 3 is a step up from its predecessors with a much grander story and gameplay. Any gameplay issues I had were improved upon here, and the addition of the style point system felt like a fresh take for the franchise. The introduction of Virgil and his brothership with Dante is easily my favorite part of the entire series so far. There's something so engaging about the characters in this specific game compared to the previous two that sets it miles above everything else. The boss fights were unrelenting and really required you to master the gameplay, with the final encounter with Virgil being brutal. The level design in the world of DMC3 felt like such a fresh start alongside the best music in the series so far. I'm struggling to find words here because everything about this was a large leap for this series that it felt like the world of Devil May Cry finally had consistency with its characters. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is not just my game of the year for 2025, it's one of the greatest games I've ever experienced. A beautiful story about art is not only outdone by its incredible characters, but the greatest soundtrack I've ever heard, on top of industry-changing gameplay. A semi-open world turn-based RPG that has elements of Dark Souls and rhythm games. This isn't just game-changing for turn-based video games, but for all games in general. The story is incredible with its realistic themes of grief and characters that are developed in ways I've rarely seen not just in video games, but in movies and shows.
No, we have a mission!
Oh, fuck the mission! Fuck the mission, Lune! What are we gonna do, huh? Tell me. What are we gonna do? We're gonna take down the paintress, just the three of us? My gun and your sparks?
I didn't take you for a coward.
I'm not a coward.
You swore the oath. When one falls, we continue.
Yes, I know.
When one falls. When one falls. Not if. When. We knew not all of us would make it, but we continue. As long as even one of us stands, our fight is not over.
Despite the somber tone, there are so many hilarious moments throughout from the Gestrels, Eskie, and Minoko. These characters feel real, not just because of how incredibly acted they are, but by letting them express a range of emotions. Characters are allowed to make jokes, have fun, have romances, and feel like real living people.
No distractions, son. I'm really busy beating up strangers.
The game doesn't shy away from serious themes and is willing to take risks. Killing off the main protagonist Gustav at the end of the first act was a shocking and depressing twist. The first act alone is around 20 hours, which is the length of some games, and killing off your lead who we got invested into up until that set the stakes for this story, and looking back on it was such a necessary yet emotional moment. The story's twists throughout continued to blow my mind, including the death of the perceived main antagonist at the end of Act 2. All of its themes of grief ultimately come together into its two different endings, where you choose what happens to everybody. Mael's ending of bringing back everyone who died and forcing them to live as puppets to avoid herself having to deal with loss, versus Verso's ending of letting this fantasy world die in order for the main family to grieve and move on. Is the perfect representation of the way we as humans deal with grief. We can either accept and try to move on, or force ourselves to act like things haven't changed. I've loved seeing the arguments online about the ending solely because it comes down to how you, as a player, will deal with the loss of those you care about. As someone who got both endings, I prefer the Verso ending. Despite killing off everybody, it's the closest you get to a semi-happy ending where the process of grief can finally begin. There's so much to the world of Expedition 33 that I can't talk about here, but I implore you to play it. Nothing can come close to the highs of this game, with a soundtrack I'm still listening to months later, and some of my all-time favorite gameplay. I can really only summarize this game as life-changing, and something that I'll vividly remember and look fondly upon for years to come. I originally had no plans to even mention this, but as I remember that despite this being me tracking my games, it's also a video diary, so it feels important. On the morning of July 4th, my dog of almost 15 years passed away. During this time of grief and realization, I found myself thinking about Expedition 33 again. Not just for its music to cancel out newfound silence, but for its themes. Its endings, being two of the ways you can process grief, became more real to me during this time. In the process of grieving a dog, you can either take time to process the loss and heal, or you can get a new dog to replace the empty space. There's truly no wrong decision, as it comes down to the person and how they choose to grieve, but I ultimately found myself in the former. A slower process that hurts like hell, but allows for healing. I found this tying back to Verso's ending, where even though you have to face reality, you can accept loss and begin to grow from it. I think this game genuinely helped me during this time, and even as I'm writing this. Everybody grieves differently, and this game allowed me to witness a form of grief similar to my own, and ultimately reminded me that nobody's alone during this time. There's always somebody to lean on.
We could never tell if you were my brother or my father. But to me, you were both. Best brother and father I've ever had.
When one falls, we continue.
Thanks for being my family.
Epic Mickey was a game I'm deeply familiar with from my experience with it on the Wii. While I highly doubt I ever beat it because I was a 10-year-old with the attention span of a goldfish, I always looked highly upon this game and its reinvention of Mickey, and especially of one of my all-time favorite Disney characters, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Epic Mickey Rebrushed remakes the Wii game for modern consoles and allows a new generation of gamers to experience the edgy version of the mouse. Playing through this game as an adult, I can see why I was captivated by it back then and even now. Epic Mickey Rebrushed feels like a love letter to classic Disney, where you travel through different Mickey Mouse shorts and worlds reminiscent of lands at their parks. The platformer elements are simple but feel polished enough to be enjoyable on top of a simple but unique combat system of repair or destroy. The gothic aesthetic of the game with its dark animatronic versions of characters like Goofy and Donald Duck still feels surprisingly original from a franchise that traditionally plays it safe. I'll always have a strong nostalgia bias for this game, but I'm grateful to finally get to experience it again, and ultimately complete it. Echoes of Wisdom is the first mainline Legend of Zelda game where you play as Zelda, and that alone feels revolutionary. Echoes of Wisdom shares the same gameplay style of the remake to Link's Awakening with an entirely new gameplay mechanic. The combat system of summoning monsters to fight for you felt unique to the series and allowed more thought to be put into every scenario. I found the gameplay to require more skill than the most previous entries due to the system of summons, while also being constricted because of how much each one costs. Different approaches could be taken per puzzle or fight, that there's clearly signs of replayability. I wouldn't consider myself to be a strong fan of this series. Prior to this, I've only beaten the remake to Link's Awakening and played a decent amount of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Therefore, I looked at this game as a fan of video games rather than a Legend of Zelda fan, but I still enjoyed my time with it. I traditionally won't include any DLC on this list, however the length of the Phantom Liberty expansion exceeds that of the majority of the games on my backlog. Phantom Liberty is the equivalent of a cyberpunk version of Escape from New York, a high-stakes espionage thriller where you work for the government to get the president out of Dogtown, a walled-off part of Night City run by a militia where crime runs free. This DLC pairs great with the baseline game where it seamlessly intertwines with choices that can directly impact the ending of the main game itself. I really love the story here through its spy thriller genre that feels emotional and tense. Idris Elba is a fantastic addition to the game, alongside all the new characters introduced that feel radically different from everyone else we met in the mainline game so far. I found myself not just invested in the main story, but its many side missions involving political gains and stealth operations. With there being 4 different endings to the main story, it feels incredibly rewarding to replay and get the wildly different outcomes on top of the different outcomes for the side missions. My decisions throughout ended up giving me a secret ending to the entire game as a whole, where you get the relic removed but end up in a 2-year coma, waking up only to learn all your friends have moved on and you are just another face in the crowd. This ending was brutal, meaning everything you worked for was worth it because you get to live. But at the same time, you lose everything. It's an ending only achievable through certain decisions during Phantom Liberty that bypass the main game story, but it's absolutely something that'll stick with me. I loved Phantom Liberty and its tense and engaging story that felt more memorable than some of the base game content, with some fantastic character work. As someone who had Cyberpunk 2077 from day one, seeing the game at the state it's at now is an incredible thing, and I'm grateful CD Projekt Red continued to work on this, allowing for Phantom Liberty to exist. I look forward to seeing the future of this franchise.
Think this is it, kiddo?
Yes. So,
Promise me one thing, will you?
I promise. No idea what, but I promise.
Not asking you to never give up. Sometimes, you gotta let go. Just don't let anyone change who you are, okay?
Johnny, I've...
Good night, Valerie. Today was a good day.
I took a much longer break from the Devil May Cry series than intended, but it really came down to that while I enjoy the series, it hasn't been something to really blow me away. While that doesn't fully change with DMC4, it's definitely a step up. DMC4's story does feel a bit weaker than the third game, particularly due to the relationship of Dante and Virgil being my favorite story element of the series. The story here feels more like the mentor teaching the new student, which works for the game, but I do miss the emotion the third game strived in. Where this game blows me away is the gameplay. Nero and Dante both play incredibly smooth, and it's definitely my favorite gameplay from the series so far. While I miss the customization of Dante from the third game, I will take smooth controls and fun gameplay over anything else, which is what this game strives for and the main reason I kept playing. A lot of the game felt like backtracking, which wasn't too ideal, however the gameplay does help with that by just being fun. I enjoyed this game, but I will definitely find myself playing some other games before tackling the final installment. I adore the Mario and Luigi series. I remember this series as being central in my youth. Partners in Time and Bowser's Inside Story are some of the few DS games I vividly remember playing outside of New Super Mario Bros., Mario Kart, Pokemon Black, and Star Fox 64 3D. Yeah, no one was expecting that last one. The Mario and Luigi series was probably my first introduction into the turn-based RPG genre and contributed to my love for the genre. To say I was excited for Brothership was an understatement, as the last installment I played was Dream Team in 2013. Mario & Luigi Brothership is a really great return to the series with a new world and cast of characters, lore, and enemies. I traditionally don't care too much about the stories from Mario games due to how linear they are, but Brothership is filled with twists, complexity, and a genuinely well-crafted story with emotion and heart. It's rare to see a story as large and complex as it's come from a Mario game, and there's certainly some handholding involved from Nintendo due to traditional audience for these games being too young to understand most of the words. To briefly summarize the story, it sees Mario and Luigi get transported to the world of Concordia, a very electronic-based world that has been broken apart by an enemy who seeks to force people into solitude. Mario and Luigi are tasked with reuniting the broken islands and stopping the enemy. The gameplay feels great. I was able to get the hang of it quickly, and the turn-based combat allowed for a lot of different moves to use and approaches to fights. The third act for the game is what really set this in for me. The reveal of the true villain is only topped by the moment where Mario and Luigi enter the Mushroom Kingdom, only to feel like it's too perfect. There's no music here, just the sounds of your footsteps as you see minor imperfections and glitches, only to realize you are trapped in a simulation as Mario and Luigi are captive in what the game refers to as a slow and painless death. Despite my praise for this game, my primary issue is the padding and backtracking. This game takes roughly 40 hours to complete, with a lot of time spent backtracking to previous islands for one or two conversations before having to travel somewhere else. The padding only becomes heavy in the third act, with a lot of quests feeling unnecessary and dragged out. Backtracking is definitely my biggest complaint, but I still love this game and its story, and I'm so glad this series had a proper return. I never played Sonic Generations prior to this. Most of my Sonic appreciation came from the IDW comics Sonic X, the original games, and Sonic Unleashed. A very unique blend of media, I'm well aware. Sonic Shadow Generations is not just a remaster of Sonic Generations, but features a new spin-off game, Shadow Generations, that runs parallel to the main game's story. After completing both games, I found Shadow to feel like a much more engaging game than Sonic. Both are a love letter to the history of Sonic, with levels being from previous entries, and the blend of 2D and 3D levels allow for two ways to see each world, which played incredibly well. Shadow Generations introduces three new types of gameplay mechanics: flight, surfing, and something close to web slinging. Shadow's gameplay felt really fresh for the series, on top of some incredibly cool level design where things become so Doctor Strange-esque. The defining moment for me was the cutscene at the end of Shadow Generations, where his story just felt more holy and ultimately rooted in emotion and character.
I'll stop Rouge. Use Chaos Control. Stop this moment in time.
Shadow? No. I don't want to be frozen in one place in time. Besides, your friends need your help.
But you don't know what's going to happen.
And if fate draws us apart, I will always
I'm going to preface this by saying I have no connection to the world of Harry Potter, with my only involvement being when I tried to read the first book as a kid in a library, and I fell asleep on the first page. Hogwarts Legacy is a game I only ever picked up as a required homework assignment for a game design class I took in college, and decided to get my money's worth out of it by playing the game in full. As someone with little knowledge of this fantastical world, I will say I did enjoy the game, primarily for its fun gameplay and RPG elements. The action and traversal were easy to learn and allowed for a lot of unique playstyles. As for the world and story, I enjoyed it, but I spent a lot of time trying to fully comprehend the world and its very complex lore. It's hard to talk about this being an issue simply because this is a game made for Harry Potter fans, and I'm not within the game's targeted audience, but as a lover of the RPG genre, I enjoyed the time I spent with the game. LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga is LEGO's biggest game yet, as it offers 23 planets to explore on top of telling the stories of the 9 main Star Wars films. On top of this, the LEGO gameplay changes to be more combat-oriented with skill trees. As a fan of LEGO games, I do enjoy the gameplay change-up as LEGO has changed with the times while still maintaining the roots of being easy puzzle games with fun combat. As a Star Wars fan, I greatly enjoyed what this game offers in terms of content, with 9 mini campaigns adapting each of the Skywalker films, and then an additional open world mode filled with side quest puzzles and more across the galaxy. Some missions felt a bit too empty or straightforward, but the gameplay was enjoyable enough to continue to play through. I enjoyed this, and I'm incredibly excited for the upcoming LEGO Batman game that has actually added years to my life. The Dead Space series is one I played through on the Xbox 360, but I never got past the eye surgery scene in the second game. I genuinely blame that exact moment for when I became desensitized to horror. This remake of the original Dead Space is great. It takes everything that worked about the original and streamlines its gameplay while enhancing the atmospheric horror and tension. The fantastic sound design instilled fear in me when I was constantly checking my surroundings, fearing that something would not just sneak up behind me, but come out of the walls or ceiling. The uneasiness of tight corners and the soulless design of the Ishimara created constant dread where even at a safe point, you still have anxiety of what can get you, because ultimately, something will always get you. Despite there being plenty of ammo to go around and powerhouse guns that can literally slow down time, the thing I'll remember most is the fear of being stranded alone in space, where no one can save you. We are now in the month of September, 2/3 of the way through this year and this series, with 20 completed games and 17 more to go. I don't know if I'll complete this challenge, and that's okay because these video diaries are not only obviously documenting my experience with these games, but it's also letting me talk about how I connected with them in personal ways as I've grown throughout the year. These 4 months from May to August have been a lot for me. I experienced the loss of a pet who I never got to say goodbye to. I spent months dealing with the struggles of finding a job in a market that has continued to beat me down every chance it can as it replaces me with AI. And ultimately, I'm burnt out, stressed, and depressed. Yet I haven't lost hope. These games have helped me. Stories ranging from a family dealing with their grief through a living painting, to a man who feels the burden of his father's sins as he feels he has to protect the world, to a hedgehog having to accept that he can't live in the past. And I'll remember each of them. While this journey may be entering its last leg, I invite you to join me. Watch me play these games, offer any tips to completing a backlog, complete your own backlog alongside me, or even prepare a list like I have for 2026. If interested, I hope you'll subscribe to me on YouTube as well as check out my Twitch where I've been streaming some of these games. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.